please remain standing while Elizabeth O'Connor says prayers.
Lord, we gather here at this meeting tonight with the responsibility and privilege of making decisions for this council area. Guide us and give us wisdom in all our deliberations. May we be faithful servants of our community and all our actions be made for the common good. In your name we ask this. Amen.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and it was nice to see you again. Please be seated. Agenda item 1, declarations of interest. Do we? Yes, Councillor Briggs.
Mr Mayor, I declare a personal interest in item 10 as I'm a member of the Lancashire Wildlife Trust.
Thank you, Councillor Gundon.
Thank you.
Any others? No. Thank you. Agenda item 2, confirmation of minutes. I would like to propose that the minutes of the previous meetings held on the 2nd of October 2023 be confirmed as correct records.
I would like to second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are we all agreed? Then we will move to the vote. Yeah, are those in favour? Yes, thank you. Item 3, Mayor's announcements. Well, I have got a list of engagements, but there's been so many, and I've met so many people. It's just been. I don't want to miss anybody out. But if you did look on the blog, you will see all the events that I have been to on your behalf. We've had a wonderful volunteers event. Well, 2. And we had Hanukkah just recently, so it's been really full on. So yeah, so I don't want to go through the whole list. So otherwise you'll just all fall asleep. So I'll go on to item 4, Chief Executive's communications. Do we have any communications to report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. None other than wishing everybody a fantastic Christmas and New Year. It's good to see so many of you all together. I don't get to catch you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, questions from members of the public. No questions have been received from members of the public on this occasion. Item 6, questions from member of the council. 3 questions have been received from members of the council. Can I remind councillors a supplementary question may be asked, but it must arise from the answer to the original question. Councillor Gardner, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for allowing me to ask this question. Water companies pumped raw sewage into UK waterways over 800 times per day last year. The Office for Environmental Protection has recently suggested that the government may have breached its own laws by failing to punish the perpetrators of these spills. As an example, our own Liggard Brook in Lytham has suffered from such dumping, which has caused and continues to cause significant environmental damage to the area. I will be writing to Stephen Barclay, the new Secretary of State for Food and Environmental Affairs, who should know the area very well, to express our concern and ask him to urgently crack down on the perpetration of illegal dumping. Will the Leader of the Council and any other councillors support this plan and co-sign this letter?
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Buckley to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The pollution of our rivers and seas is a concern to us all, and the recent downgrading of the classification of bathing water quality at North Beach in St Anne's is particularly worrying. Since that announcement, I have written to the Environment Agency and United Utilities a joint letter with our Chief Executive to request sight of their action plans to improve bathing water quality. And I have also written to the Secretary of State for the Environment, Right Honourable Steve Barclay MP, to strengthen the monitoring and enforcement role of the Environment Agency. Blackpool too has been blighted with deteriorating water quality, and so I raised an item of business on the Economic Partnership Board of 7th of December for the 3 coastal authorities of Blackpool, Fylde and Wyre to work together on securing action from United Utilities to reduce pollution. The Environment Agency has since supplied their action plan following their own findings that the source of pollution on St Anne's Pier and St Anne's North beaches is 30% agricultural, 60% sewage and 10% unclassified. They plan to target their resources to prioritise bathing water, align their agricultural resource to better deliver regulation and advisory services, and review United Utilities' asset performance. They have also made proposals to fund an external project required to understand pollution sources, source apportionment, and inform future action plans, and alongside that, to seek additional staff to investigate sources of pollution and deliver targeted actions across priority bathing waters. United Utilities, I understand, has agreed to fund the Ribble Rivers Trust with £1 million donation. This will be used to deliver a range of projects, all aimed at improving how catchments operate to realise water quality, water quantity preventing flooding, and biodiversity benefits. The question mentions Liggard Brook, so it will be of interest that there is a specific project identified that Ribble Rivers Trust will undertake at Main Drain / Liggard Brook. The budget for the project is £190,000 and will involve creating wetland sites that will address issues such as freshwater quality, bathing water quality, flood mitigation, low flow and biodiversity. This project will work with farmers, communities and Fylde Council to develop and deliver wetlands of varying sizes over a 2-year period. The Environment Agency have been undertaking silt level surveys at Liggard Brook with a view to seeking funds to carry out desilting, which will help improve the flow of the watercourse, reduce flooding and foul water contamination. Also, our officers confirmed that United Utilities are looking to invest in Lytham Pumping Station to reduce combined sewer overflows and have included this project in their next funding programme to Ofwat. In this past year, under the leadership of Councillor Tommy Threlfall, a technical group has been established to bring together officers from the Environment Agency, United Utilities, Ribble Rivers Trust and Public Health, as well as our own officers to help drive improvements in water quality. Our Head of Technical Services also attends the Turning Tides Partnership, which is a cross-agency body established to improve bathing water quality on the northwest coast. Mr. Mayor, I realise this is a lengthy answer to the question, but I'm sure members are interested to learn what Fylde Council is doing to address poor water quality in our rivers and seas and holding those responsible to account. I'd like to thank our officers for their continued efforts in keeping this priority on the to-do list of partner agencies whose responsibility it is to reduce pollution from whatever source. But in particular, I'd like to thank Councillor Threlfall, lead member for the environment, who is tireless in his determination to see improvements and is engaged with these matters every single week. Indeed, he seeks every opportunity to secure progress for Fylde, having a regular dialogue with our MP and senior officers at the Environment Agency and United Utilities to keep the pressure on. I'd also like to thank our wonderful community of volunteers who litter pick our beaches all year round, and each and every visitor who takes their rubbish home with them and who picks up after their dog on the beach. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I have asked that members have the opportunity to further challenge the plans from those responsible to improve our water quality, and so it has been included on the work plan of the Community Focus Scrutiny Committee in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Gardner. Would you, or do you have a supplementary question? Would you like to answer? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have a supplementary question, and I thank the leader for that lengthy explanation. And I haven't been able to take all that in as yet, but I will certainly watch it back closely and listen to everything that Councillor Buckley has said. Councillor Buckley did mention that she hoped that Blackpool, Fylde and Wyre would work together on this issue. And my supplementary question in relation to this is that our adjoining councils, Wyre, Preston and Blackpool, have all signed the Climate Emergency Declaration and have employed a dedicated climate officer. Fylde Council, as yet, hasn't done any of this. I would like to ask why not, and isn't it about time that we did?
Councillor Buckley, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you for the supplementary question. Just to make it clear, Fylde Council has not joined signing a climate emergency statement along with a number of other councils. However, it's not right to then conclude that we are not taking action on climate change, because we clearly are. And as Councillor Gardner knows that, because she's a part of the scrutiny committee that saw the climate action plan go before it, and part of that was to employ an officer to take that matter forward. There have been discussions with Blackpool along those lines, but we look forward to that coming to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Question 2. Councillor Withers, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 years ago, Redcar and Cleveland Council suffered a catastrophic attack on its ITC systems, following which a ransom demand of several £1 million was received from the hackers. The council's leader, speaking at a National Security Strategy joint committee meeting, said no to the demand, with the council not being able to afford the payment and fearing the potential impact on other councils. Redcar and Cleveland's IT systems were forced offline. The leader said, "We lost everything. It was catastrophic. We could not make payments for rates or bills. We had no records or documents. We had no telephone service or emails and no functioning computers. It took us 8.5 months to put things back together." It was subsequently discovered that a virus had been hidden in an email on a council laptop. The authority had received a clean bill of health only 2 months prior to the incident. The cost to the council was £11.3 million. It was not insured. This is not an isolated case. There are constant and relentless attacks by hackers, often based overseas, on local authorities the length and breadth of the country. I'm aware of the dangers of revealing in public sensitive information about the measures taken to protect our systems from these criminal activities, and would not wish to jeopardise our security in any way. I would like to ask the following question. Has Fylde Borough Council suffered any breaches of its IT defences, which have led to costs being incurred and insurance claims made in respect of ransom payments to hackers? Thank you.
Councillor Morris, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Withers, for your question, which indeed comes at a time of heightened security alert And indeed, only last week, the Deputy Prime Minister urged us to stock up on battery-powered radios and torches, as well as candles and first aid kits, to prepare for power cuts or digital communications going down from cyber attacks on the national grid, as we have all become too reliant on devices activated by the internet. However, to answer Councillor Withers' question, I'm pleased to report that Fylde Borough Council has itself not suffered any serious breaches to its IT defences, and therefore no associated costs have been incurred. No ransom money has ever been paid to hackers, and the Council ensures its computer suite, IT infrastructure, devices, laptops and mobiles, and data and information. In an ever-evolving and challenging threat landscape, officers are dedicated to doing everything they can to ensure that the integrity and security of the Fylde Council network is maintained, that user and account information is safe, that network resources, systems and services are available, and that all data is protected. Officers are committed to adopting best practice, engaged in continual training and development to keep abreast of the latest trends and threats, investing in and continually reviewing technical security controls, bolstering frontline network defences, and employ data design patterns to lessen Fylde Council's network data exposure points, to address the data extortion and ransomware threat, which continues to be the most prevalent and damaging in the sector and beyond, across all government and enterprise. As you've said, Councillor Withers, I'm sure you can appreciate that this is a highly sensitive area of the Council's work, and I am restricted to what I can divulge in a public meeting. However, should any members wish to learn more on an individual basis, please get in touch with me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Withers, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Morris, for such a comprehensive and reassuring answer. I would like to ask the following. Does the current trend of allowing staff to work from home using their own Wi-Fi arrangements render Fylde Borough Council's IT systems more vulnerable to malefactors?
Councillor Morris, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Withers, for your supplementary question. I'm pleased to announce Fylde Council staff and elected members accessing Fylde systems, services and resources connect securely into the Fylde network over an encrypted tunnel configured in line with National Cyber Security Centre, NCSC, best practice on their laptop or managed device. This enables a secure connection regardless of location and the Wi-Fi network connected to it. Vigilance and caution are advised to all Fylde Council staff and elected members when working from any location in the current cyber security climate, with the continual threat posed by criminals wishing to extort, disrupt and enact malicious activity against government networks. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Question 3. Councillor Fasackley, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. I understand that at the Executive Committee meeting there were comments made regarding waiting times for the arrangement of funerals at our crematorium, and additionally queries regarding future investment at this facility. Therefore, could we please have some information on the current length of waiting times for the arrangement of cremations and an overview of any planned investment to improve facilities for service users and our staff? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fasackley. Councillor Dixon, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Fasackley. Very pleased to speak on this matter. I think it was Councillor Armitt stated at the Executive Committee that people had to wait 3 or 4 months for our crematorium, and that immediately raised concerns with us, and it raised a fair few eyebrows with our officers as well. So we have had a check. It's important that our residents know there is not a 3 or 4 month wait at the crematorium, or even a 2 or 3 month wait at all. On average, people using the crematorium are waiting some 20 days after the loss of their loved one. It can be as short as 8 days, and if anyone has gone through loss, you'll know 8 days is very quick and perhaps too quick to cope for many people. The crematorium works on average at 70% capacity. Generally, that's just over 54% capacity Monday to Thursday, and on Fridays 80 to 100% capacity. However, care time between death and the funeral is determined by variable factors such as registration, coroners, the availability of doctors, funeral directors, carriage masters, ministers, churches, reception venues, along with each family's particular availability and requirements. Capacity does get tested after bank holidays and seasonally. Therefore, our crematorium staff are anticipating to work between 70 and 100% of capacity every day from the second week of January through to the end of February, due mainly to the combination of the seasonal increase in demand and delays caused by the registration service and medical practices closing during the festive break. There has never been an instance where we've stipulated there is a 3 or 4 month wait. It's important our residents know this and are reassured by this. At the end of last week, we had people booking funerals into the new year, but there were still, last week, almost 40 slots available before that date. Those dates were booked for a variety of reasons in the new year, not because of no capacity. If a death occurs at the end of 1 month and the family elect to have the funeral 5 weeks later, which is kind of standard, you know, bridging January and March, some might refer to that as 3 months, but it's certainly not a 12-week wait. Genuinely significant delays, on the other hand, can be caused by factors such as a coroner's inquest, family commitments, disputes over arrangements, and stuff from other agencies. We found this to be the case for 3 funerals in 2023 out of more than 1,400 funerals held at the crematorium, where the care time was up to 5 months due to the coroner's involvement or delays relating to the family or other agencies, not to the crematorium. As for investment, we've invested £762,269 in the crematorium since 2013, including works on the infant memorial garden and the windbreak canopy and further interior works. It's a wonderful facility used in the saddest of times. We just agreed last week at the exec a further £55,000 spent this financial year after our officers recognised some wear and tear. But more importantly, and every credit to our crematorium team for this, they used cost intelligence to bring forward works due to take place next year after keeping a key eye on the market and recognising an increase in costs and a shortage of parts. Those works, totalling around £25,000, will be carried out this year, but could have cost almost double if left to next year. We've looked into the costs of potentially increasing the footprint of the crematorium further for mourners, but the exercise revealed it would likely cost, I think it was around £1,600 per extra seat we put in there, and we'd have to lose much loved parts of the estate in doing so around the crematorium, which other people use. For the record, at Lytham we can seat 94 people. We've got standing space inside for a further 25, room for a further 20 in the foyer, and we have unlimited speaker access for outside so people can hear outside if they need to. Blackpool has 80 seats, space for 20 standing inside and 20 outside. And Wyre has seating for 70, standing for 15, and the service that can't be played outside. So we do actually have the biggest crematorium on the Fylde Coast by a margin. It's run exceptionally well by our team, and we have no complaints I'm aware of for delays at all, but I'm more than happy to speak to anyone if they do have any concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fazakerley, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Following that reassuring response from Councillor Dixon, Mr Mayor, I have no supplementary question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, medium-term financial strategy. I invite lead member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Ellie Vaughan, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In this update, we talk about 3 key areas: the revenue budget, which focuses on income and expenditure; the capital programme, which focuses on the capital commitments that we have and reserves balances; and the Treasury Management Monitoring Report, which shows how the Council manages its cash balances and investments. Turning to revenue matters, the original budget for 23-24 was approved in March 23 and is shown in Appendix A. This forecasts a surplus of £186,000 for 23-24, followed by a deficit of £85,000 for 24-25, and thereafter larger deficits running into 26-27. If we turn to Appendix E, we can see the position at November 23 and compare it with Appendix A. This shows a surplus of 273,000 for 23-24 and a small surplus for 24-25 of 38,000, followed by deficits thereafter. If we look at Appendix C, we can see a clear pattern for 23-24 emerge, which is that the interest rate income that the council receives is largely offsetting other adverse movements in the revenue budget. Notable adverse movements are in wages and agency costs, housing and homelessness, and fleet maintenance costs. In addition, due to poor weather over the summer, car park income, adventure golf income, and splash park income were lower than expected. Turning to the Capital Monitoring Report in Table 1 under Section A of the agenda, you can see the forecast capital expenditure across the borough and details of the financing arrangements in place. These show that 16.5 million is forecast to be spent in 23-24 and 4.2 million is forecast to be spent in 24-25. The anticipated closing position on the Capital Investment Reserve is 2.658 million at March 24, and for the Funding Volatility Reserve, the forecast balance at the end of March 24 is 4.145 million. Because of the complexity of the capital schemes we undertake, I think it's worth being aware of the risk of cost pressures, both from inflation, which is acute in the construction sector, and from any unforeseen issues that can arise when complex capital projects are underway. There is a link in the Capital Project Monitoring Report in the agenda, and this shows the main changes since Budget Council, these being the suspension of the St Anne's Seawall project and the inclusion of the event space development in St Anne's Town Centre. Turning to Treasury Management, we can see that the Council has earned on average 4.78% on its investments. In cash terms, this is 1.12 million and compares favourably with the sector average of 3.65%. The Council continues to prioritise security and liquidity over yield, and as far as I can see it, this is a sensible policy that has served it well. And as I've already mentioned, the additional interest income it's received has been extremely welcome in supporting the revenue budget. In summary, the Council remains in a relatively robust financial position, and we should all be thankful for this. But the pace of change is fast, and the economic headwinds affecting it means that it's important not to take this situation for granted. So I'm happy to propose the recommendation in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm pleased to second that item, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? We will now take the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 8. It's you again, Councillor. Go on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item focuses on managing cash flows, banking and investment arrangements, and the figures in this report are taken as at the end of September 2023. Key things to outline are that as an authority, our treasury arrangements are a little more complicated than we might first realise, and this is because we hold cash on behalf of other organisations, including Lancashire County Council and the police and fire authorities, as well as our own balances and reserves. As the report shows, total cash and investments at the end of September 23 total 25.4 million. Because of the risks of holding large cash balances and investments, the main priority of treasury management is risk mitigation. As I've already mentioned in the previous item, the yield we have received has been very good in the year. But it's important to note that the Council only invests in high quality credit organisations, including other local authorities, and only ever for a maximum duration of 1 year. to secure sufficient liquidity. It also takes risk mitigation into consideration in its banking arrangements. I do also note as well that the Council remains debt-free. We remain compliant with the Treasury Management Strategy approved at Council in March 23, and also with SIPFA guidance on Treasury Management and Monitoring, and as such I'm pleased to propose the recommendation in the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Withers.
Yes, I'm pleased to second this item as well, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to this item? No. We will now take the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Agenda item 9, LAHF Phase 2, etc., etc. Councillor Dixon. I won't steal your thunder.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. This has been to us before, certainly at Executive twice now, and it's been unanimously supported. There's a wonderful long report there, which I hope everyone's read. It's been put together by Kirsty and the housing team, and they've done a tremendous job. This is a fantastic scheme from our team, who recognise the opportunity to land a large amount of government money through the Local Authority Housing Fund to increase the housing we have for all those in need. And we're getting that money through the Afghan Resettlement Scheme. If we commit £1.5 million, and that's a big number, of our Section 106 funding, which is already in place to increase affordable housing, then the government will give us a further £1.257 million to invest in affordable properties. It's important to note this is funding which is already earmarked for affordable housing. It couldn't be used for sort of any other grandiose schemes that we have, so it's a great use of the money. In essence, we receive the funding along with our contribution. We'll be purchasing 12 housing units, which will be managed by a registered provider. We'll have no ongoing costs associated with them as a local authority. These funds, like I said before, couldn't be used for anything else, so this seems to be the perfect way to do it. And if we don't use these funds, we always run the risk of some of these funds returning to the developers. 4 of these homes will initially be used to house those on the Afghan Resettlement Scheme, which, if everyone knows about, is resettling people from Afghanistan who've helped our forces abroad. Now, once those properties become free again, we can then use them to accommodate any deserving people on our housing lists. More people on the Afghan Resettlement Scheme, more people from Ukraine who are presenting as homeless, or local people who are in housing need. It will reduce the pressure and cost on council budgets when we're spending an increasing amount on bed and breakfast accommodation, which is entirely unsuitable for families who need a permanent and affordable base in Fylde. It's a big drawdown of cash, but it's all fully funded thanks to the excellent work of our officers. I'm very happy to propose it, but can take in no way any credit for it. It's all down to Kirsty and the team. And just so people know, we actually have 17 units in Fylde, providing help through the National Asylum Support Service. That's 59 people that we look after. Once those people are granted leave to remain, they often have to leave that accommodation due to the way the funding's in place in a matter of weeks. This could help bridge the gap for them and stop us having to put people into bed and breakfast as well. And it will significantly help us when we get anyone presenting to Fylde Council as homeless. So I'm very happy to move the 3 recommendations as per page 44 of the agenda. And if anyone is worried about the third point, which does mention that clause 7 and that further costs may fall on the council, there essentially won't. The further cost that could fall on the council is our officer time that we've put in. If for any reason we couldn't get the funding or we couldn't do it on time, we simply wouldn't progress the scheme. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very happy to stand and second this. It's a wonderful scheme, and may I compliment our officers in the work in putting it together. Thank you, Mr
Being
Mayor.
so eager. Does anyone wish to speak to this item? Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In Fylde for some years now, we have looked after several groups of refugees from the Ukraine, from Syria, and now Afghanistan. As a board member of the Veterans Agency Northwest, I was directly involved with Operation Pitting, which was the rescue of many of these people from Afghanistan. I know and welcome the fact that here in Fylde, with dedicated officers, we've opened our hearts to all of them. but I particularly welcome those who are embedded with our forces in Afghanistan, because if they weren't here, they would otherwise have been executed. And should any further Afghan refugees come here via Pakistan, for example, then I think we should again open our hearts to them. We owe the Afghans a particular debt, and I'm very pleased to see this comprehensive proposal, which I commend. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nash. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to this item? No. We will now take the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 5. Oh, sorry, I'm going backwards. sorry. Agenda item 10. Funded budget increase to deliver the Fylde Sand Dunes project. I invite Councillor Nixon to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand to propose a good news story. A fully funded revenue budget increase to the sum of £232,338 paid in annual increments to the years 26-27. This is to be met from Environmental Agency's grant relating to the Sand Dunes projects. The sand dunes are of national ecological importance, providing habitat for a wide range of protected species. The Fylde coast has 18 kilometres of coastline stretching from Stargate to Savick Brook. The project will ensure the long-term sustainability of Fylde sand dunes as a soft coastal defence and statutory designated ecological asset. The Fylde Council are responsible for the operational delivery of the project, employing 2 staff. The Council works in conjunction with Blackpool Council, and this funding will ensure the next phase of this project. I'm happy to support this and have a seconder in Councillor Thomas Threlfall.
Councillor Threlfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very happy.
Thank you. Do we have anyone who would like to speak to this item? No. We will now take the vote. Those all in favour? No. Carried. Unanimous. Agenda item 11, Healthy Weight Service funding. And Councillor Dixon to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Fylde Council has been allocated funding of £47,981 per annum to deliver a Tier 2 weight management programme and play and skills at tea time activity sessions as part of government funding for the future delivery of healthy weight services. This will be a scheme that runs in collaboration with Lancashire County Council, and it's going to run for at least 5 years and possibly a further 3 years. A lot of the time I think people look at these schemes and think that they're a bit light and a bit mealy-mouthed, and you know, is it throwing good money after bad? But this is our officers again recognising income streams and winning them for the council. It's a fully funded increase and a great scheme. We are really well thought of in relation to these schemes in Fylde. Our colleagues in Wyre recently lost some of their health funding due to a really hands-off approach to weight loss, where they were just registering people with a weight loss class and leaving them to it. But we don't here. We tie in education as well as exercise to help people. So we've got a massive extension to our weight loss programme here. We're looking at getting more referrals from our GPs as we go forward. The vast majority of people so far have been self-referrals, and our officers are keen to get more people in via NHS routes, and that will probably, again, attract more funding for us as well. It's further evidence of our officers' hard work, and basically I'm waiting for the intervention and the phone call to say I'm signed up. So I'm very happy to propose the recommendations on page 59 of the agenda, which is to approve a fully funded revenue budget increase to the tune of £383,848 over the next few years, to be met in full from the Lancashire County Council funding relating to the Healthy Weight Services grant.
Thank you. I'll be there after that phone call. Councillor Settle, I believe you're going to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very happy to second this item. Could I take the opportunity also to compliment Alex Scrivens and his team for devising such an excellent programme. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to this item? No. We will now take the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you. agenda item 12, members' allowance. I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is on page 116 of the agenda papers this evening. And the recommendation, which I'll read it out, says that the current basic and special responsibility allowances be increased from 1st of April 24 by a sum equivalent to the increase in the Consumer Prices Index since 1st of April 23, and that the allowances be increased by reference to the same index on 1st of April in each of the subsequent years 2025, 2026 and 2027. Mr Mayor, the recommendation has come before us this evening from the Independent Remuneration Panel. So this is not councillors setting their own allowances. This is an independent panel that meets for the purposes of looking at the allowances of the councillors on this council and benchmarks them against our local councils and also other councils that run committee systems like us. So that is their job, and they have put forward this recommendation to us this evening. And I'll just read from the minutes of their meeting, which is on page 127. It's Appendix 2 to the report. The panel went through the report and discussed the current economic climate, specifically inflation. It was acknowledged that the current level of allowances seemed to be appropriate for the current financial year, but with inflation likely to continue to be a significant factor for the foreseeable future, it was considered prudent to index link members' allowances. So that's the history of the report coming to this council. They met on the 9th of November, Mr Mayor, so this is the first opportunity for this report to come before us, and for us all to note that any of the increases suggested would not take place until next April. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You do have a seconder in Councillor Redcliffe.
Happy to second the recommendation, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say I completely agree with the whole system of remuneration for councillors. It's not an amount that's a salary, so we don't get the full-time professional councillors, but it does give an amount of money for people who would maybe not be able to afford to take time off work to take up their duties for council, and so the whole principle of the remuneration I agree with. I also actually agree with the report that's come through today about index linking the remuneration that we do get. It would cut down the amount of time we have to come through here and vote on our own pay rises, which I don't think any of us particularly like. So again, that in principle, I don't have an issue with that. But what I do have at the moment is out there, it's such harsh times. Most households in this borough are experiencing difficulties. Today is 1 week till Christmas. And for us to be awarding ourselves a pay rise today, although I know it does come in April next year, but it's still, this is us voting on our own pocket. I would just like to, so with those two things, I would like to propose an amendment that we simply go with this recommendation, but just postpone it for a year. We may not be in sunshine in a year's time, but at least with this is we know that today we can recognise the hardship that people in our borough are going through. Now I have submitted this in writing, but I will now read the amendment that I propose. In recognition of the current financial difficulties faced by the majority of households in the borough, the increases in the current recommendation are deferred for 1 year, so that current basic and special responsibility allowances be increased from the 1st of April 2025 by some equivalent to the increase in the Consumer Price Index since the 1st of April 2024, and that the allowances be increased by reference to the same index on April the 1st in each of the subsequent years, 2026 and 2027. That is it. I have a seconder in Councillor Armitt, and I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Armitt, just a second. Can you see that? Yeah. Can everyone see that? Is there anybody else to speak? I invite councillors, if they want, to speak to the amendment. Do I have any councillors who would like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Withers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can't agree with the amendment. I don't see the point of having an independent body to set remuneration for councillors and then overruling it. It can always be said that circumstances are straightened. There are always people who are struggling, and that won't change. But I don't see that there's any point in this amendment, really. Just to postpone it for a year, it seems a little like virtue signalling to me, which I will leave to the others.
Do I have any more speakers? Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, one of the things I would say is that we're all in different positions, but there'll be some councillors here who are also feeling that the pinch as well, and it would be wrong of us to put them in a position where they might not be able to afford to represent people and do what they need. It's down to each and every one of us to take our allowances, and if we don't feel like we should take it, we can decline it. It's not a problem. I think leave it with the independent body that's put it there, and if they suggest an up, it's up. If they suggest a down, it's down, and leave it with them.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Redcliffe.
Yes, in considering this a particular amendment, I think it's great that we're considering the needs of our local community and that they are hard pressed, and we do acknowledge that we live in challenging times. But you see, I feel the best way to help hard pressed local communities is as a council to ensure that we continue to deliver and perform at a high level in terms of our operational services, and something that Fylde is very proud of, delivering value for money. And I think that's the best way that we can serve citizens of Fylde. And I do also want to just add that in terms of the general recommendations here, the independent body have recognised that we've got a revised committee structure, we have a reduced capacity with 37 councillors, and that where we sit with similar local authorities of a similar size, we're very similar. So there is absolutely no reason that we should change the recommendations of an independent body, because their recommendations are sensible, proportionate and well-founded on the evidence that they see in Fylde. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is not a salary. We're not paid, but we are taxed on it, which I've always found rather strange, especially as the current government 4 years ago was looking at getting rid of the income tax on what is an allowance to help us to do our work. We're not virtue signalling, as was said by another member. We set an example in Fylde, as Councillor Redcliffe quite rightly says, by the quality of what we do, and that's got very little to do with councillor allowances, but more to do with leadership. I feel that we would be leading the borough of Fylde, not by virtue signalling, but by setting an example from ourselves just to delay this measure. And therefore I support the amendment.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Buckley, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I do not support the amendment. The recommendations, as has been said, have come from an independent panel who look at everything in the round, and the recommendations are simply to keep parity with inflation. And also, it has been noted that members do not need to take their allowance, and that's made, we make reference to that every year. There tends to be this kind of debate every year, and I think it's down to us to recognise the work of the independent panel, and I think also, very importantly, not to prejudice those councillors either who wish to do the right thing and represent the communities that they serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. we need 5 councillors to vote to support a recorded vote. Do I have... The hands are up before.
So, councillors for or against the amendment, I'll read the names out. If you could indicate for or against. Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Armitt.
For.
Councillor Bickerstaff. Councillor Brickles. Councillor Damien Buckley. Councillor Karen Buckley.
Against.
Councillor Edward Collins.
Against.
Councillor Peter Collins. Councillor Dixon. Councillor Evans. Councillor Fazakerley.
Against.
Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gaunt.
Against.
Councillor Goodman. Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Harrison.
Against.
Councillor Hayhurst. Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Hodgson.
Against.
Councillor Kirkham.
Against.
Councillor Ledger. Councillor Lee. Councillor Morris.
Against.
Councillor Nash. Councillor Nixon.
Against.
Councillor Pittman.
Against.
Councillor Redcliffe.
Against.
Councillor Redfern.
Against.
Councillor Settle.
Against.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Threlfall.
Against.
Councillor Wilder. Councillor Withers.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Councillor Anthony.
Against.
And the Mayor Councillor Little.
Against.
Thank you.
So we have 12 for, 21 against and 2 abstentions. The amendment is defeated. Thank you. Now, do we have any speakers on the substantive motion? Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am an independent councillor. We don't always vote the same way. We've just seen that tonight. I did agree with what a lot was said by my colleagues on the other side of the chamber. There are people that perhaps look at being on the council, but taking up their time, they could be earning money elsewhere. I mean, we do it for the goodwill of the people we represent. And I think, yeah, just putting it up, it's not going to make any much difference either way if it goes up or it doesn't go up. But reading this item, there is an anomaly in the special responsibility allowances. The funny thing is, it's for the there is no special responsibility allowance for the Leader of the Opposition. It's not one at all. There's an allowance for group leaders. The Leader of the Conservatives gets £39 per member. The Leader of the Independents and Liberals gets £39 a member. And the Labour Party get £39 a member. But there's no allowance for the Leader of the Opposition. Now, a comparison, I did ask for some more information, a comparison of what other councils pay the Leader of the Opposition, and that was sent, I think that was sent to all councils. What they do get paid will come as a recommendation from the remuneration panel. So I'd like to propose another amendment, have it in writing. amendment is to add a second recommendation that the Independent Remuneration Panel be asked to review the roles of leader and deputy leader of the principal opposition group and leader of second opposition group at Fylde Council to consider their eligibility for special responsibility allowances and to prepare a report for a future meeting for full council. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Collins? Thank you.
Just trying to get it up on screen.
Are there anyone, is there any elected member that would like to speak to this amendment? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Butler.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm very happy to speak to this. It's a little ironic with the Leader of the Opposition just moving an amendment not to take any increases, and then there's an amendment put forward from his side to include something. And in principle, I don't have a problem with it being considered. I think, and for it to be considered in the next time that the independent panel meet. And I think that would be the most appropriate time when they meet, and then we look at what their deliberations are. I'm also a little confused because I'm not aware that the opposition have a deputy leader, but I'm happy to be corrected in that. So I think there's a little bit of confusion. There is the opportunity always to put forward to the remuneration panel before they meet what we would like them to consider, and I think that would be the appropriate way forward, not on the back of this recommendation. And I hope that that is taken in the spirit that it's meant, because of the way that the opposition leader has spoken against increases in allowances. So this isn't to curtail that, you know, for any other reason, just to consider it in the proper manner, which I believe would be when they meet ordinarily again and they look at it all in the round. That would be my response. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else like to speak to this item? No. Councillor Lee.
Sorry, just a quick point. Just the leader was confused about something. I don't draw the allowance for leader of the opposition.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this item? No? We're going to take a vote on the amendment. Yeah. So this is to vote for this amendment of Councillor Collins. All those in favour? Yeah, yeah, no, what is it? Yeah. Those against? Any abstention? One, oh yeah, 1, 2, 6, 7. Yeah, the amendment's been defeated. Right. So we go back to the substantive motive. Motion! It is nearly Christmas. This is gin. Anybody would like to speak to the substantive motion? No. We'll take a vote on that then, please. All those in favour of Councillor Buckley's? Yeah. Thank you. Those against? Nine again. Abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item agenda 13, the review of UK parliamentary polling districts. It's Councillor Gaunt again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, the review of polling districts and polling places has taken place. The details of this are shown in the appendix, and I move the recommendation in the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redfern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to second this item.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak to this item? We will now take a vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 14, invitation to accept appointment of Deputy Mayor 24-25. I invite Councillor Karen Henshaw to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to propose that Councillor Joanne Gardner is invited to become the Deputy Mayor of the Borough of Fylde for the municipal year 2024-25. And I would like to ask Councillor Noreen Griffiths to second my proposal.
Mr Mayor, my microphone's not got green. It has now. You're all right, it's working now. I'm happy to second Councillor Joanne Gardner to be Deputy Mayor for 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Does anyone wish to speak to this item? No. We will now take a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Now, while I've got these teeth in, I want to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from myself and from my Deputy Mayor. It's been a wonderful year so far, hasn't it? So, all the very best to every one of you. Thank you very much and good night.
Should be recompensed.